Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to get started with Django, which is a Python framework. And yes, I'm finally doing a tutorial on Python. A lot of you guys have been asking for it. I do plan on doing a very basic Python for beginners, looking into the core language and the syntax and so on. But I wanted to do a project-based tutorial on Django first. I know it's kind of backwards. But this is going to be more of a demo than a structured tutorial, just to let you know. I'll explain what I can, but I'm not going to go in depth excuse me, on every piece of code that I write. We're going to build a to-do list with the Django administration panel so that we can log into the admin and add to-dos. Now you can follow along with this tutorial and build pretty much any kind of CRUD application. I just chose to do a to-do list because it's simple and it's something that everyone understands. So before we get into it, let's talk a little bit about what Django is. It's a high-level Python framework that encourages rapid development and pragmatic design. Alright, so it's supposed to take all the hassle out of web development, and it relies heavily on the command line to help us do things really quickly. Django is a little different than, let's say, Ruby on Rails or other MVC frameworks. It actually follows the MVT design pattern, which is Model View Template. Alright, so basically we create our models, we link to a database, and we put our logic inside of a view file and then display the UI with templates. So the view file essentially works like the controller does in MVC. It's a little weird at first, but it makes a lot of sense when you actually start to work with it. Alright, now I'm relatively new to Django, so if you're a seasoned Django developer and you see me do something wrong or something where there could be a better way, just go ahead and let me know in the comments. But don't be an asshole. Alright, so let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and open up my terminal. I'm using Terminator, but you can use any terminal program. And first thing we want to do, let me just make this a little bigger. We want to install pip, which is the Python package manager. So to do that, we're going to do a sudo, let's do apt-get update. Let that update. And by the way, if you're on Windows, you want to go to, I think it's python.org, and just go ahead and download Python and you can install it as an exe. If you're using Ubuntu, it's already installed. If you say python -V, whoops, I spelled that wrong. You can see I'm using version 2.7, but you can also use version, I think 3.6 is the latest version. But a lot of people prefer 2.7. But what I'm doing in this tutorial is the same no matter what version you're using. Alright, so now that we updated our package manager, let's do sudo apt-get install, and then we want to do python-pip. Yes. Alright, and once that's done, we can install Django using pip. Alright, so now let's do sudo pip install Django. Okay, now it's telling us we're using pip version 8.1, version 9.0.1 is available. Alright, now we want to check the installation by saying Django -admin, and then we're going to do excuse me, -- version, and you can see we're using Django 1.10.5, which is the latest at this time. Yours may be different depending on when you're watching this. Now there is something called virtual environment that you can install so that you can manage multiple Django applications, Python applications, or not applications but different environments. So that's something you may want to look into if you plan on doing a lot of Python development, but I'm not going to do that in this video. Alright, so now what we want to do is we're going to create a folder, or a directory, sorry, we're in Linux, a directory called apps. Okay, this is pretty much a brand new Ubuntu install. I did install Atom and Terminator in Chrome, but aside from that, it's pretty much a default installation. Alright, so let's go into apps, and we're going to create a Django application. Okay, so we can do that with that Django admin, and then we'll say start project, and let's call this to-do list. All right, so now if we go cd into to-do list, and we can see that there's a manage.py file, and then there's a to-do list folder. Now what I'm going to do is open up my text editor, which I'm using Atom, and I'm going to open that to-do list folder as a project. Alright, so let's go ahead and say add project to folder. Let's see, it's in apps to-do list. Alright, let me just close this stuff up. Okay, so we have manage.py, which we don't need to look at this file. This is a tool that we use in the command line to do stuff with. All right, then we have our to-do list, which has settings, URLs, and this WSGI, which I'm not even sure what that is. But settings, we can edit our settings here. We can change the template directories, things like that. If we use middleware, that goes here. Installed apps. So by default, Django comes with an admin, an authentication app, sessions, messages, static files. This is where we put our database information. Now we're going to be using MySQL, so we're going to need to install that as well. And then we have our static URL folder. This is basically where we want to put our CSS files, things like that. All right, so it's just the main settings for Python. It doesn't use XML files or anything like that. Everything is in the Python file. And then this URLs is kind of like our routes. Okay, you can see here the admin route is set up. It uses regular expressions, but we'll get into that later. All right, so next thing we want to do. Now, what we want to do is we need to create an app. Okay, Python has these things called apps, and I think that's kind of a stupid word for it, because I look at the whole thing as an app, but I would personally rather call them modules. So basically we have different modules. So if we have a blog, we're going to have a blog module. If we have a store, we'll have a store module. So what we're going to do is create a to-dos module or app, whatever you want to call it. All right, now to do that, we use that manage.py file. So what we can do is we can say Python, and we could say manage.py, and then start app, and then let's call it to-dos. All right, now if we look in our folder structure here, you can see it created a to-dos folder with a bunch of stuff in it. Okay, we have our admin.py, apps, models, that's where we put all of our models, tests, and then views. We also have migrations, okay, because we can perform database actions through migrations, just like we can with Ruby on Rails if you've ever used that. So next thing I want to do is I want to try and run the server. So I cleared out my console here, and what we can do is we can say Python manage.py and then run server. All right, and you're going to get this 13 unapplied migrations. You can ignore that for now, but you can see it's on localhost port 8000. So let's go to that. And you should see a page like this. This is just the welcome page letting you know that everything is okay and up and running. Alright, so now we're going to start to work on our to-dos app. So we want to be able to go to /todos, and that's going to be our index page for our to-dos. So what we can do is go to our to-do list urls.py file, and this is basically the routes, okay, and it uses regular expressions. So this right here is for the admin side, which we'll get to in a little bit, but basically this caret symbol here means that this is where it starts, okay. So we're saying any route that starts with this word admin. All right, now we want to take to-dos, so I'm just going to copy this, right? Whoops. And then what we want to do is just take that and say to-dos. And then anything that goes to to-dos, we want to send to the to-dos URL file, which we're going to create in a second. So right here we can say include. We say include, and we want to use the to-dos.urls file. Okay, so if we go to to-dos/add, then all we have to put in our to-dos URL file is add. Now this include right here we actually have to bring in, so right here we're gonna just say include, comma. Alright, so we'll save that. Now let's go into our to-dos folder and create a URLs file. So we'll say urls.py. And then in here, we want to bring in the URLs package. So we'll say from django.conf.urls, and we want to import URL. We also want to import the views. So we're going to say from dot, which is the current folder, import the views file. And then just like we have in this URLs file, this URL patterns, we're going to just grab that. Okay, and then let's get rid of that one. And then the route we want to match here. So we'll say caret and then money sign. So this means start with and end with. So whatever we put in the middle here is what it's going to match. Now this is going to be just the root of to-dos. So just slash to-dos, so we're not going to put anything in there. And then we want it to go to views and then the index function. All right, and then we're also going to give this a name of index. So it's going to look for a function in the views file called index. All right, so let's save that. And it's not going to work yet because there's no index. Let's see, to-dos is not defined. Oh, I think I messed up something here. Yeah, this should actually be in quotes. It's looking at it as a variable. Module object has no attribute index. Let's see. Oh, actually that's right, because we have no index function and it's looking for it. So now let's go into our views.py, and we're going to go right here. We're going to say define index. This is how you create a function in Python. And it's going to take a parameter of request, because every request is going to have a bunch of stuff with it. It's going to have any form submission data. It's going to have the user's IP address and a whole bunch of stuff, and that all goes in that request file, request object. So we need to decide what we want to happen when the index view is loaded. So what I'm going to do is just return HTTP response, and then we'll just send some text. So we'll just say hello worlds, a world. All right, now in order to use this HTTP response, we need to bring it in. So we're going to say from django.http and import, we want to import HTTP response. So let's save that. And let's see, invalid syntax, def index request. Oh, we need the, forgot the colon. Okay, so now we get hello world at /todos. Now I also want the home page to go to the to-dos. So what we can do is in our to-do list and then urls.py, I'm just going to copy this. And let's paste that in there and then just get rid of the to-dos. Or what we'll do is just put a money sign. So that matches the root. And that'll go to to-dos as well. So if we go and just go to localhost 8000, we get hello world. Alright, so far so good. Now what I want to do is, I'm going to close these out. I want to connect our database. So if we go to settings.py and go down to databases, you'll see that by default it uses SQLite. SQLite is it's a file-based database. It's very simple. It's really good for prototyping and development, but it's not something you would want to use in production unless it's a really small site with not that much data. But what I would suggest is that you use either Postgres or MySQL. So for this tutorial, we're going to use MySQL, and we have to install it. So if you already have MySQL installed, whether you're in Linux or you're on Windows using XAMPP or something, you won't have to take these steps. But what we're going to do is just install MySQL real quick. Alright, so I'm going to just split this, and let me make this bigger. So to install MySQL, let's first do a sudo apt-get update. Oops, it's wrong. And then we want to go do sudo apt-get install, and we want to install MySQL -server. Yes. Okay, so we're going to set a password for our root user. Okay, let's say service MySQL status. Okay, so it's running. Now what we're going to do is we need to install the Python MySQL module. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to say sudo, so what is it? Sudo apt-get install, and I think it's Python-MySQLD. Or not. Or is it DB? Let me try that. Yeah, it's DB. Okay, so now that we've done that, we need to create a database. So we're going to log into MySQL by saying sudo MySQL, and we want -u. We're logging in as the root user. Whoops. Root, and then we want to enter a password. Okay, I'm going to enter the password I just chose earlier, and now we're in MySQL. So let's say create database to-do list. Whoop, I forgot the semicolon. Alright, so now if I say show databases, I always forget that damn semicolon. And there it is, to-do list. Okay, so we have MySQL set up, and if you're using Windows, and you can go into something like phpMyAdmin and just create a database called to-do list. So now what we want to do is go back into our settings, and we want to change up this database field here. So instead of SQLite, we're going to say .mysql. And for name, let's get rid of this. We're going to put in our database name, which is to-do list. Okay, let's see, we're going to put in the user, which is root. And we want to put in the password. You want to put in whatever you used. And let's see, we'll say host. Host, we're going to leave blank because the default is your local host. And then port, we'll also leave that blank for the default port. Alright, so now that we have that, let's save it. And now we want to run a migration. Now, this next command is going to create all the tables we need for our admin, for auth, and all that kind of stuff. Alright, so let's go back up here, and I'm just going to quit the server, and we're going to do Python manage.py, and then migrate. Alright, so it's applying all those migrations, and it's created those tables, or it should have. So let's go back down here, and let's say, whoop, down here in MySQL, and we'll say use to-do list, and let's say show tables. Alright, and you can see that it's created all those tables for us. So next thing we want to do is we want to create our model for our to-dos. So we want to go into our to-dos folder, and then models.py, and we create a class for our model. So we're going to say class to-do, and then we're just going to pass in here models.model. Okay, Okay, make sure you put that colon there. And we're going to create our fields. So we just want to have a title. So we'll set that to models dot, and this is going to be a char field. Alright, so anything that is going to be text or anything really, any kind of characters, and you need to set a max length for char field. So let's say max length, and we'll set that equal to 200. Alright, then we also want a text. We'll say models, and then this is going to be a text field because it's going to be longer. You want this for like blog post bodies, things like that. And then we'll also do a created at, and we'll set that to models dot, and let's say date time field, like that. And I want this to be automatically inserted, so basically I want it to just be the current date and time. So I'm going to use a package up here. I'm going to import a package from date time, which is a Python package, and we just want to import date time. And then let's see, in here we just want to say default. I'm going to set a default to date time dot now. Okay, we're also going to set blank to true. Alright, so that'll do it for now. Let's go ahead and save this file. And it hasn't done anything in the database yet. We need to run a migration. We'll clear that out, and then we're going to say not sudo. We're going to say python manage.py, and then let's do make migrations to dos. Oh, we're getting some errors here. So app to dos cannot be, is it an installed app? So we have to go to our settings file, settings.py, and we need to add it to our installed apps right here. So let's see, we're going to put in to dos, to-dos.apps.to-dos config. Save that, and then for this URL message, I think that pertains to our URLs file, this right here. So I'm just going to comment that out for now, and let's run that again. Okay, so it created a migration with this 0001. So now what we want to do is we want to say python manage.py, and we're going to say SQL migrate to dos and 0001. Okay, so that created it. Now we need to run just migrate. So python manage.py migrate. Alright, so now let's go down here to SQL, and let's say show tables, and now we have this to-dos underscore to-do table. So now what we're going to do is create a user so that we can use the admin panel. So up here, let's clear that out, and we're going to say python manage.py, and then we're going to do create super user, and we'll do -- username. Username equals, let's say admin, actually I'll say Brad, and then we want email, so -- email equals, and I'm just going to put a fake email in here, and then we're going to do, actually that's it. So we'll click enter. It's going to ask us to create a password. I think it has to be 8 characters, so I'm doing 1 through 8. Oh, it's too common. Alright, so let's do, I'll do uppercase P, password 1, and then exclamation. Oh, they didn't match. Password 1. Okay, so super user created successfully. So now we should be able to log into the back end. So if we say /admin, oh, we need to run the server. So Python manage.py run server. Reload. So let's see, username was Brad, password, and there we go. So now we're logged into the back end. And from here we can add more users if we want. Okay, we can add a username and password. We can add groups and put users inside of these groups. Okay, and we can choose permissions, so different things they can do. Can they add a group? Can they add logs? Can they change permissions? So this is some really cool functionality right off the bat, which is really nice. Now notice we have no to-dos anywhere. So to add that, we're going to go, let me just close these out. We're going to go to to-dos and then admin.py. And from here, we're going to bring in our model. So let's say from .models, we're going to import to-do. Okay. And then we're going to say admin.site.register, and then just pass in to-do. So let's save that. And we're going to reload our admin panel, and then if you look here, we have a to-do section. So those couple lines of code allowed us to give us all this functionality. So we can now add them. So let's say my to-do 1. This is my first to-do in this awesome application. Okay, and then notice that the date is pre-filled with right now and the time, and we're going to click save. All right, now notice that right here it just says to do object. Okay, now what I want to have is the title here. So what we need to do is go into our models file, and we just need to say right here, we'll say def _str _, and pass in here self, and then we just want to return self.title. Alright, so that'll actually use the title as kind of the main field here. So if we reload, you'll see now we have the title. If we want to add another to do, we'll say my to do 2. And save. Now we have 2 of them. Alright, so now we want to work in our front end. Let's just go to /todos. We want to list our to-dos here. So right now we're just sending out text. If we go to our views file, we're just doing this HTTP response, and we don't want to do that. We want to render a template. So instead of this, we're going to say return render, pass in the request, and then the template we want to use. So we'll say index.html. Alright, now let's save that, and then in our to-dos folder we're going to create a folder called templates. Okay, and then in there we're going to say new file, index.html, and let's just say hello from index, and we'll save. Okay, and now you can see that it's actually loading that file. Now if we want to pass in variables, that's really simple. What we can do is just add in an object as a third parameter. Now what I usually do is create a variable called like context, and if we were to say like name, actually that has to have quotes, so name Brad, and then down here we'll just pass in context. So now if we save that and we go to our index, and let's say hello from, and we'll use our double curly braces, and we'll say name. Save that, and we get hello from Brad. Okay, so we can pass in values just like that. which is very similar to Express and Ruby on Rails. Now, instead of just sending a name, I want to send our to-dos. So let's make a query to get those to-dos. So first thing we need to do is bring in the model. So from dot models, we want to import to-do, and then inside of our index function, let's say to-dos. Actually, that'll be lowercase. To-dos equals to-do dot objects dot all. All right, and then we can define how many we want right here by putting some brackets, and we'll say 10. Okay, now we want to pass that into our template as to-dos. Okay, so now we should have access in our template. So let's go to our template, and what we want to do is loop through our to-dos. So let's do a UL. And by the way, I'm not going to work on the front end UI. I'm not going to use Bootstrap or anything. I just want to focus on Python. The design isn't important. All right, you guys can do that afterwards. So what we'll do is put in curly braces with percent signs. Whoops. And we can say for to-do in to-dos. And then down here, we're going to say end for. Okay, and then here, what we want to do with them is display an li tag. And so let's put to-do dot title, and then we'll just put a colon, and then we'll do to-do dot text. So let's save that, reload, and there we go. We're pulling out our to-dos. Now I just want to put some kind of header here. So let's go up here and just say header. Actually, you know what? We need to put in all our HTML tags and everything. So let's see. I'm going to just take this, put it in here, and then inside the body, let's say header. And I'm just going to put in H1. And then we'll just put an HR. Alright, so there's our header. What we want to do next is we want to have a details or a show page for each to-do. So let's wrap the title in a link. And we want this to go to slash to-dos slash details slash, and then we want to put the ID right here. So to-do.id. We'll wrap that around the title. And let's reload, and if I click on that, it goes to details 1 for that one. This one will go to details 2. So now we need to make it so that that actually works. So we're going to go back to our to-dos urls.py file, and we're going to create a new route here. So let's say URL, and then we're going to do R, and let's say start with the caret symbol, and then details slash, and then what we want to do is we want parentheses and then question mark P, and this parameter is going to be an ID, and then we're going to say slash W, and let's say 0, 50. Alright, and then after the parentheses we'll do slash money sign, which means that's where it ends. And then for that route, we want that to go to view.details, which we still need to create. All right. So this here is what's needed if you want it if you want it to accept an ID parameter. All right, or an ID parameter. So let's save that, and then we're going to go to views, and we're going to create a new function here called details. Now for this, it's going to take in a request, but it's also going to take in a to-do ID. Okay, because that's how we set up the route. let's see. Now we want to just grab a single to-do. So let's say to-do equals, and remember we have our model, so we can say to-do dot objects dot get, and then we want to pass in, whoops, dot get, and we want to say ID equals to-do underscore ID, okay, or whatever you put right here. So now we need a context, and we're going to return a template. Okay, so context is going to be just a single to-do, so we're going to set it to this, and we want to render a template called details.html. So we'll save that and we'll create details.html, and let's put in an h1, and we should have access to to-do.title. So let's save that and try it out. Okay, looks like we have an issue. View is not defined. All right. Let's see. Let's go to URLs, and it should be views, not view. Okay, so if I click on one of these, details got an unexpected keyword argument ID. Oh, you know what? Since we used ID here, we want to use that here as well, not to-do ID. Okay, and then we also have to change it here. So let's try that. And there we go. So now we have a details page. If we click on my to-do 2, that's what we get. Good, so that's exactly what we want. Now let's go back to details HTML, and let's put a paragraph tag, and that's where we'll put the text, to-do.text. And let's see, we'll do a line break, and then we'll say created on to-do.created@. Okay, save it, and there we go. Now notice if we look at the source code, this doesn't have the HTML tags and all that, and we could put it in here, but that's not going to work out, especially if we have a lot of templates. We want to, basically we can create a partial, and we can include those in our templates. So in the templates folder, let's create a file called partials, and I'm going to create a file called header.py. I'm sorry, not py. That should be header.html. And then also a file called footer.html. And then let's grab from the index the doc type down to where the header ends. We'll cut that, put that in our header file, save that, close it up, and then we'll grab the body in HTML at the bottom, cut that, put that in footer, save it, close it, and go back to index, and then what we'll do is just throw in our tags here, and we'll say include from the partials folder, we want header.html, and then we'll do the same with the footer, like that, and let's go back to the index. Let's see, template does not exist, partials, oh, that should be a dot. Okay, and let's see, let's look at the source. Good. Let's give it a title in the header file. Just say to-do list. Okay, so now in the details we want to do the same thing. We want to just grab the includes and put those in the details. This will be footer. Alright, and now you can see that it has the header in it. Let's put a go back in the details as well. Okay, so we'll say href, and let's set that to go to /todos. We'll say go back And you guys can style this however you'd like. So we have a complete CRUD application now with a backend, with an admin login. So if you want to create resources from the front end, you can do that as well. So what I'll do is in our header file, let's create a link. Let's see, we'll put it, actually, you know what, before we do that, I want to show you how to load CSS files and static resources. So you need to create a file, or I'm sorry, a folder inside to-dos called static, and let's say new file. Actually, no, I want to do new folder, CSS, and new file, style.css. And let's just take the links and we'll say color green and save. Now we're going to go to our header file where we have our head tags. And let's see, we're going to go right here and we're going to put in some tags. Sorry if you guys can hear that banging upstairs. And we're going to say load static. Okay, and then right under it, let's put a link. We'll say rel style sheet. And that's going to go to, we'll go like that and say static, static style, no, CSS / style.css. Alright, so let's see if that works. Reload, and now we have green links. So you know that that style sheet's connected. Okay, so now let's put our add to do link. I'm just going to go right under the header, and that's going to go to /todos/add. Save that. Okay, now that's obviously not going to work yet. We're going to just close all this stuff out. And let's go to our to-dos URLs file. And I'm just going to copy this. Make sure there's a comma there. Oh. Okay, and then we're going to change details to add. And we want this to load the add view. So right here, we'll just change this to add as well. Alright, so let's create inside templates. We'll create a file called add.html. And let's put our includes here so that we get the header and footer. And I think there is a way to use layouts as well. You can do that instead of partials if you want. Now in here I'm going to paste this in. Okay, so basically we have a form. The action we're setting to URL add. We're going to call the add function. We're making a post request, and this right here, CSRF, is going to prevent cross-site forgeries, so you want to have that. Then we have an input with the name of title and the ID of title, and then a text area with the name of text and ID of text. And then I just put a submit button and a go back. So let's save that. And now, let's see, module object has no attribute add. Views.add. Oh, we didn't create the function in the view. So let's go to views.py. Okay, we'll say def add. Request. Alright, now, since we're going to use the add function to load our view, to load the form, and we're also submitting to it as a post request. So what we can do is let's test to see if it's a post request. Whoops, that's not right. To see if it's a post request or a get request. So we're going to say if request dot method is equal to post, then we're going to do something else. then we're going to do something else. So if it's a get or not a post request, we're going to just return render request, and we want to load the add.html template. Okay, so let's save that. And let's see, expected and indented block. It's probably talking about this. Let's just do return. Page not found. To do /add. Oh, I have the parameter here. Stupid. This should just be add. Like that. Let's see, is that still wrong? Yeah, we don't want the slash. So just add. Well, that's not working either. Let's see, what if, do we need a name maybe? There we go. Okay, so now we have our form, and since it's a GET request, we're just going to the URL. It's loading up our view. Now, when we submit it, it's going to make the POST request. So let's go back to our add function here and see what we need to do. So we want to grab the form fields or the values and put those in variables so we can get that from the request object. And we're going to say dot post, and in here title, and then we want to get text post text, and then what we can do is say to do equals, and then our model, and then we're going to pass in title equals title and text equals text, and then finally we'll say to do dot save. All right, and then after that, let's just redirect by saying return redirect, and let's just go to /todos. All right, so let's save that and reload, and then let's say test to do. This is a test to do. Submit. Global name redirect is, oh, you know what, we need to bring in redirect. So up here at the top, that comes from the shortcuts, so I just want to put that in there. All right, now it probably still worked, it just didn't redirect. So let's go back to to-dos, and there it is. Let's try it again. And submit, and there we go, another test. Okay, so we can now submit to-dos from the front end. And if we were to go to our admin area and go to to-dos, you'll see that those are all listed here. Okay, so that's about it, guys. Oh, one more thing. If you want to customize your admin panel, if you want to basically create your own template, you can go in templates and create a new folder called admin. And let's create a new file here called, what do we call it? base_site.html. All right, so now if we go back and reload, it's completely blank. And basically we're overwriting it with this. Now you can change certain parts of it, so let's put here block branding, and this is all in the documentation. Oops, get that out of there. And then we'll say end block. Actually, that's all one word. And then this is basically the H1 at the top that says site administration. So we're going to give this an ID. Oops. Give this an ID of site name, and let's put in here to-do list administration. And let's save that and reload. Okay, so there's our title. Now, You could build this whole thing out with these blocks, and if you look in the documentation, it'll show you how to do all that. But if you just want to kind of just change one thing like I am here, you can extend the core template. So up here we can say extends admin / base.html and save, and then reload, and you'll see it's back and we've changed the title. Okay, and there's all different types of blocks that you can use to change all different kinds of elements in this template. Alright, so that's going to do it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I know that there were some mishaps, but again, I'm pretty new to Django. But as I learn more, I see that it is a really nice system to work with, and it's great for getting things up and running really quickly. Alright, so that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe, please leave a like, and I will see you next time.